In a 6-3 ruling, the conservative Supreme Court has decided to strike down President Joe Biden's incredibly weak vaccine mandate, which pertains to large businesses with 100 employees or more. Now, I say it's insanely weak because it had all sorts of loopholes, all sorts of caveats. People who don't want to get vaccinated could take advantage of those loopholes and not get vaccinated. But nonetheless, the Supreme Court, with every single conservative Supreme Court justice, decided to strike that part of the vaccine mandate down. Now, they did decide in the same ruling to uphold the similar mandates that would apply to medical facilities that receive any public funding or any money from Medicare or Medicaid. So it seems like they're applying two different standards here. They did not sign their decision on this, which I think tells you quite a bit. And so let me give you their so-called rationale in this ruling. Although Congress has indisputably given OSHA the power to regulate occupational dangers, and that's true, they have been given those powers, it has not given the agency the power to regulate public health more broadly, requiring the vaccination of 84 million Americans selected simply because they work for employers with more than 100 employees certainly fails in the latter category. Oh, is that the problem, that it wasn't applied to smaller companies? Okay, well, if that's the case, then Biden should just revise his vaccine mandate so that it applies to smaller companies. But of course, that's not the real issue here. This is a conservative Supreme Court, and more importantly, a pro-corporate Supreme Court. And there were several, dozens of right-wing states that sued the Biden administration over this. You also have some businesses and corporations who didn't want to have to deal with testing and vaccine mandates. And when I talk about those loopholes, what I'm specifically referring to is if an employee at one of these companies decides, nah, I don't really want to get vaccinated, all they have to do is submit to COVID tests once a week. And there are other loopholes as well, including religious exemptions and things like that. So really what I believe is happening here is that the Supreme Court is handing down rulings that are favorable to what the corporations want, because this is a pro-business, pro-corporation Supreme Court. That's it. We're dealing with this pandemic that will not go away, mostly because of the fact that people are still unvaccinated, not just in this country, but globally speaking. People are not getting boosted. It's just a complete and utter mess. And honestly, at this point, this is what we should expect. Anytime there's any common sense executive action or legislative move in Congress, it might just be completely destroyed in this conservative Supreme Court.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head when you talk about how wholly captured the Supreme Court is by the corporate interests. And again, it's very bad with the Republicans. It's very bad with the Democrats, but on the Supreme Court, who these guys are allegedly neutral arbiters of the law, right? Allegedly, these guys, especially the conservative judges, they are 1000% pro-corporate in basically every single decision that they're going to make. They're gonna side with the corporations. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm not really all that bent out of shape about it. It's not like this mandate had any real teeth to it anyway. And I have a hard time believing that people who were dedicated to not being vaccinated weren't gonna figure out a way to get around this, or even employers would figure out a way to not, sort of enforce these mandates. So I can't get too bent out of shape about Sleepy Joe's mandate getting knocked down.
Well, in the same decision, they did essentially apply a double standard when it comes to these healthcare facilities. They argue, we agree with the government that the Health and Human Services Secretary's rule falls within the authorities that Congress has conferred upon them. Is that what? Okay, so when it comes to healthcare facilities, this kind of mandate makes all the sense in the world. By the way, I think it makes sense in all cases, including, by the way, in small businesses as well. But look, while we keep basically seeing common sense policies or common sense executive orders get basically ruled against in this pro-corporate Supreme Court. I don't want anyone to feel despair because we are seeing some positive outcomes in regard to working conditions during this pandemic when workers organize and are willing to strike. Now, this has been a huge issue among workers throughout this pandemic. And one trend that I think is very noticeable is that when workers are unionized, when they're organized, when they're willing to strike for better working conditions, including more protections at the workplace so they don't get sick from COVID, more often than not, they do get what they want. So a lot of people will sometimes message me and they'll be like, we appreciate that you're being honest about what's going on in the country, but what do we do then, right? Like, what do you advocate that we do? Well, try to change your immediate environment. I mean, I think that's where we've seen some positive changes, and that gives me a little bit of hope. But under the current system that we're living under, governmental system, with this highly conservative Supreme Court, with, by the way, the fact that Donald Trump was able to successfully appoint hundreds, literally hundreds of conservative federal judges, we're gonna keep running into issues like this again and again unless the people are willing to organize and really do what it takes to challenge the one thing that seems to matter in this country, and that's capital.
Yeah, like that's basically it. You hit the nail on the head. The only thing that's been able to be a ballast against the corporate interests are, unions, workers organizing and striking, just labor militancy. I think, when people criticize folks for being apathetic and not being involved in the political process, what's the proof that collectively marshaling a political will towards, I don't know, getting Joe Biden the electoral college votes in Georgia, right? Like he went down there the other day and some black leaders were like, yo, we put work in. Like there was boots on the ground here, knocking on doors, like sweat equity put into getting Joe Biden elected president of this country. And you've done nothing to show, there's nothing to show for it. Like they did all of that hand wringing about how Republicans are gonna come and kill our babies while they sleep because they're so awful, they're the devil. Oh my God, save us from the Republicans, please, Joe Biden. And what do they get for it? Nothing. People are tired of platitudes. People are tired of photo ops. People are tired of kente cloth, Nancy Pelosi. People want to see action, and the only action that we've seen in the past few months, the past year, is labor action.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. That's the only inspiring and positive thing we've really seen in this country, during the pandemic and certainly during the Biden administration. You say that Democratic voters are tired of the stunts, the photo ops, the kente cloths. But what about Hamilton? Do you think Hamilton still has lasting power?
Oh God, as somebody who's never seen Hamilton, but have been forced to listen to it on Spotify, the soundtrack. I was hoping that we were done with that thing, and here goes Nancy Pelosi rearing that ugly Hamilton head again with just the corniest, most that was absurd. That was insane.
So we didn't actually talk about it on the show, Waz. So for the audience members who have no idea what we're talking about because we haven't covered it, do you want to give them a quick rundown of what happened with Hamilton?
Yeah, basically, to commemorate, I guess to commemorate the day, the anniversary of January 6th, which we know, Anna, is the single worst thing that's ever happened to in American history. To commemorate the day, they got Lin-Manuel to write a song about unity and togetherness and I don't know, crap. And some Hamilton cast members actually sang and they played the video, and Nancy Pelosi was so proud of herself to present the people, to present the Congress with this beautiful song she had commissioned by the great Lin-Manuel Miranda. It was embarrassing. I wonder, I really do wonder, and I mentioned this on our Twitch show, and I wonder if the Democrats would have found a way to pass Build Back Better in some major way, would they celebrate it? Like, would they get people to write a song to be like, yo, child tax credit, paid sick leave, basically green spending so that we can, get ourselves out of the climate rut? Would they commission a song or, get a painting done? I don't think so. I don't think they would celebrate that. But for January 6th, because it conveniently, paints their enemies as cartoonish, evil, blah, blah, blah. It's so convenient for them. They want to celebrate that. And again, I don't want to make light of January 6th, but I mean, to pretend that it's the death of our democracy when, Build Back Better has a 70% approval rating amongst the American people, and a few people in the corporate class can just basically say, go to hell, right? To 70% of the American people, what's more undemocratic than that?
Well, by the way, so it turns out that the crew did talk about that story. It was in the bonus episode on Fridays. I'm not on the bonus episode on Fridays. So for those of you who want to check out that conversation, you can by becoming a member, tyt.com/join. Or if you're watching us on YouTube, just click on that join button on the screen. But yeah, I think you make such a great point, Waz, and it goes back to what we saw during the Obama administration. And it worked, during that time, just like this constant dependence on celebrity culture to get their messaging out. But at this stage in the game where Americans are really seeing what corporate rule looks like, and they're experiencing that in their households, they're experiencing that in their pocketbooks, they're not interested, okay, in the stunts. They're not interested in the celebrity culture. They want actual legislative change. And if you're not gonna give that to them, simply relying on the boogeyman messaging regarding the Republican Party simply isn't good enough. And I don't mean to minimize in any way how destructive the Republican Party really is. Make no mistake. I mean, while some might think, well, January 6th was bad, but it wasn't the worst thing that's happened in this country. It's not just about January 6th. It's about everything that led up to that day and everything that has happened legislatively on a state level. Everything that's happened in regard to redrawing districts in all of these red states, all of that, look, the Republican Party, for all of the embarrassing, humiliating, stupid things they say publicly, on the ground, they're pretty well organized. And it seems like they get things done. And it's stuff that they get done to our detriment, to the detriment of our democratic process. I am concerned about that. What I'm more concerned about, though, is that we have no line of defense in regard to the Democratic Party. Like none, zero.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.